Hello, everybody. Today we're having a writing book review, and it's this one, Violence, a Writer's Guide by Rory Miller. Please do me a solid. YouTube will probably suppress this video because of the book title, because there's a lot of stuff with bad words that should not be used, then traffic is reduced. So please press the like button so it will be easier for people to find this video in searches or in recommendations. Thank you. What is Violence, a Writer's Guide? It's by Rory Miller. Mr. Miller was a soldier, a corrections officer, martial arts expert, and writes books about self-defense, conflict, and all this kind of stuff. And decided to write a book about real-life violence because he's a guy who knows violence to dummies like most writers who have no idea what violence is like. And since this isn't the cancelathon readathon by H. MacDonald, this is the non-fiction book, the category of the non-fiction book. I'll do a trigger warning, as I'll do with the rest of the cancelathon books. And the trigger warning for this book, Violence, Roy's Guide, is pretty much everything. Because in this book we have frank talk about all the things we prefer to ignore. And there's a lot of nasty stuff in there. All the things you can imagine are explained in a way or another. I mean, come on, there's a whole chapter about the mechanics of dying. So, yes, this book can get very, very big points. It's not exploitative though. It's very matter of factly, and we'll get the writing later on in this review. I've got two disappointments about this book. First is that I got it in paperback, and there are some links inside. They lead to some very disturbing places, I guess, to some real life crime incidents, some photos of wounds, this kind of stuff. I haven't checked. Yeah, I like fictional violence, but not real life violence, really. I don't want to have to blitz my eyes. And my second complaint, it's probably my fault because I didn't read the blurb as well, is that this book does not talk about dramatic violence. It's more interested in dismissing some unrealistic tropes, some mistakes writers make, and people believe that are true because they see it in movies. And it never goes into why some tropes we see in television, in books, about violence do work. And a very important piece for writers who want to write violence, along with how violence really works. However, your question probably is, should I read this book? I believe that yes, you should. It's very useful because we're civilized people. Most of us live in countries where there is no real life violence. Maybe some of us have never been in a country before, so we're not accustomed to violence. We understand violence in a realistic way, and this book just gives us a peek to some city places. It will definitely point out the mistakes writers make, and also it's food for thought. I mean, I'm writing a book right now has a lot of action, conflict, military slash police procedures, realities I'm not that accustomed to. And this book, there's a point in the book that it gave me a insight, something I haven't thought, and I added today in the novel. And also, when I go back to do the edits, probably do some more changes. At the same time, there are some tropes I didn't quite follow because I thought they weren't working, and this book makes me feel that yes, you need to write tropes that make sense. If you want to know more about my work in progress, there should be a link over here. What's in this book? It starts with establishing a hierarchy of violence, of violent behavior and conflict, And there are basically two types of conflict. It's social and social violence. And this was incredible because it makes your character attitudes and reaction to violence more interesting. There are personality types and how they, again, there's a hierarchy of how different personalities react to conflict, which is super interesting. And there is a breakdown of how conflict works, the stages of conflict, as where these three taxonomies of violence are an incredible tool for any writer because you've never been there or you've been there if you've never thought about how it would change if different people participated. It even gets into the logistics and social dynamics of violence, meaning when societies accept violence, different societies accept different types of violence, how easy or hard it is to do some things. Then it takes time to explain some very crucial stuff, very basic stuff about the mechanics of unarmed combat, blunt, edged, and makeshift weapons and how they work, some firearms, what's happening with body armor, what are the differences between all those different stuff in there, so you won't call a magazine a clip because gun nerds will get pissy about this. How injuries work, how our body breaks or breaks down. It was a pretty tough chapter to read. If you write action, thriller, military, or even fantasy and sci-fi that have some big combats, this is an interesting read. I mean, there are some chapters about the battlefield. What's life in the battlefield and why things happen in fields or they don't work. They're not the same as in movies. So yes, it's an interesting read. You'll get some fresh ideas about violence. You'll get a starting point for more research, some taxonomies that are very useful. Your writing, get your characters make realistic choices and reactions and actions. Yes, it's a very safe way to get a glimpse of the dark side, but I would suggest not clicking on your ebook that willingly. I didn't. I haven't seen what's there, but it says you don't. I take no. I warn you. Really, you may want to do that. The writing in this book, Balance Writer's Guide by Rory Miller, second edition. The writing is solid. There is a mix of facts, anecdotes, and personal experiences, and it's done with great transparency, and it's always clear which is great in a non-fiction book because you don't get bad info, or you may know that this info is bad, and sometimes you get facts, anecdotes, and personal experiences that contradict each other. So you choose what you do. And every chapter ends up with some activities, better understand it, as well as a list with the main takeaways of the chapter to to keep in mind while reading. And well, I wasn't too hard about some blog excerpts that are included in here. I thought they were bloggy, and the writer as a writer has evolved since then. But this is a nitpick. So yes, for me to recommend, suggest you get the ebook, give it a read. It's an eye opener. Yes, it'll make your writing better. Now, if you know any alternatives for dramatic violence and how or why it works, I'd love to leave it as a comment. I'm interested in reading that. As always, you can leave a like, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you soon on a video. Thanks for watching.